Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here at the Irish Hotspur, and this is your preview for Tottenham's London derby against Chelsea. We will be diving into those tactics, taking a look at those key battles, and also looking at the stats, of course. But before we get into it, don't forget to smash that like button. Do get your score predictions into below in those comments below, everybody. I do like taking a look at those, but let's get this party started. Let's get it going, everybody. We're going to start with the cold hard facts, and I must say this time around, the cold hard facts are a bit colder than usual, everybody. They do kind of even hurt to say with the cold hard facts. Tottenham have only won one of their last 37 away matches at Chelsea. You might have heard this one once or twice. I'm not going to say it again, but Chelsea, maybe a bit of better news. Chelsea and Spurs have both kept 16 clean sheets last season in the Premier League, but Spurs, in fact, had more 1-0 wins, maybe thanks to Nuno Espirito Santo. One thing maybe we could thank him for. But as well, the last cold hard factor is that Tottenham finished 3 points off Chelsea, with Chelsea's goal difference actually being better because they did concede 7 fewer goals than us last season and also scored 7 more. Maybe also Thomas Tuchel deserves a bit more respect with the fact that Spurs also did, score a lot of goals last season. People didn't think that he did. The head-to-head battle is going to be between, of course, the likes of Antonio Conte and Thomas Tuchel. Hasn't gone well, for Antonio Conte in the past, you could say, where, his only 3 defeats ever against Chelsea have actually come when he's been the manager of Spurs. Our last 5 results against Chelsea, as we know, have not gone well. We haven't won at all. Most of those, being, I think, cup, performances, from last season. I believe we played them 4 separate times, everybody. We lost under Nuno, 3-0 at home. We lost both of the cup games, and then we lost, away from home, to Chelsea, and Antonio Conte, when he took over as manager, it's not been good against Chelsea. It's very much been the bogey team, for previous managers as much as it's been for, Antonio Conte. And, Thomas Tuchel, in fact, the Spurs fan, has actually had an exceptional record against the likes of Spurs, winning 7 matches and not even drawing or losing one yet. And he is even a Spurs fan. He's been quite ruthless towards us, I must say. Moving on to the bit of the team news here. And the team news are probably lacking, and that's kind of on my fault, everybody. We did this a bit early, but Ollie Skip is out with a foot fracture or a heel fracture, as you might say. When it comes to, the likes of Longley, he could be, on the bench, but he's, unlikely to start with an abdominal sort of pain. And then in the case of, Chelsea, everybody, Kovacic is going to be out with a knee injury. And then I do believe Marcus Alonso is not going to be included in the lineups whatsoever because he is making an imminent move to Barcelona. But enough of that, everybody. Let's talk about, the tactics. Let's talk about Chelsea and how they do attack. They're obviously a very possession dominant, but very, possession conservative team. What I do mean by that is that, maybe unlike, Liverpool, who like to take risks, maybe with the ball in possession, you could say Chelsea, they're kind of one of those teams that sort of love to have the ball, but maybe might pass you to sleep, maybe kind of team. They're not going to take too many risks with it. They're not going to give you too many opportunities to maybe counterattack you. And, the reason that might be is because they have Jorginho as that sort of tempo setter. I think what makes Jorginho actually quite unique, despite maybe how, little people do rate him, is that he is very good at sort of kind of keeping the tempo going. He is very good, at being able to, have lots of options available to him when he receives it, like we have here in the animation. He could pick out Sterling. He could pick up, his inverted, center back, Koulibaly, showing a bit of support there. He could find his, partner in the midfield in Conte. Jorginho is an excellent player, finding, kind of, that tempo role. And then as well, they kind of combine that, with very progressive center backs. The most progressive center back has usually been their left-sided center back. Formerly, that was Rudiger. Now that is Koulibaly. I do think Koulibaly, though, is very good in possession. And so he will basically replace that sort of, dynamic, aggressive, possession play that Rudiger used to bring. I think Koulibaly will be able to, show, or at least be able to replace that in some form or fashion. He will be able to drive the ball, of course, forward into the final third, maybe progress the ball with his own, kind of carries, instead of just passing it. He'll carry the ball himself. He'll try to find the likes of, Mason Mount. He'll try to find the likes of Sterling, Havertz, who will be playing various roles of, running behind or, playing as false nines. You never know, but he will be, used kind of like Rudiger was in the past as that sort of progressive left-sided center back. Let me know what you think of that, guys, because Koulibaly, I think he'll probably be almost better than Rudiger as that sort of left-sided center back. Then again, though, I'm happy to see the back Rudiger, because that guy honestly was an absolute torment, to us Spurs fans, in so many ways. But he progresses the ball forward. He finds the likes of Mason Mount, who's able to then play it first time to Havertz. Havertz holds it up and is then able to see that inverted run of the likes of Sterling. Those three will play very, close to each other, very narrow at times. Often they'll be very wide from each other, but they do like to, in Chelsea, like to get close to each other, that front three, to be able to pull off goals like that. But another sort of kind of key threat for them, of course, are those wing backs. And, I do expect Marc Cucurella to play in this game, but the real threat for me is actually Reece James, because I think Reece James, a lot of people kind of forget about, is, a very technically good player and someone that can, help out, Chelsea when it comes to, being able to go forward. We'll talk about him later, but Reece James, I think a lot of people do forget about when they do find themselves in these wide situations. Reece James, he can easily just play one touch, sort of kind of 1-2 with, the likes of Mason Mount here. He plays it down the wing. Mason, then Reece James can play a wicked ball into the back post or the near post to whichever player is making the right run. Havertz, while maybe not being the most prolific goal scorer, I actually think is quite good in the air and is, proven, to be, quite okay, finding himself in, the right places at the right time. So when you see, Reece James in these sort of positions here that we have paused, he is going to be very dangerous, everybody, and us Spurs fans are going to have to be well aware of that, and he could find the likes of Havertz, like I said, who's a bit taller than people might remember, and is also quite good in the air. The way Chelsea defend is it maybe a bit different to the likes of how maybe Spurs like to defend in the 3-4-3. Chelsea are going to try to press us high up the pitch. The way that they actually try to control possession is actually by trying to win it high up the pitch. They don't maybe, immediately go for, a sort of route one approach like maybe Liverpool do after winning it. They're not going to be immediately dynamic. They just want to win the ball so that they can, control the game and can kind of control, kind of the tempo of it, as I keep saying, which is a very important word, because I feel like that is, kind of how Tuchel's teams, do like to play. But, in situations like this, what Chelsea do like to do is that after maybe a bit of possession, we might find ourselves with Romero maybe, not having a lot on. He doesn't have too many passes available to him. He could play it back to Eric Dyer here. He could play it maybe a risky pass into Kulusevski. Maybe he goes for, a long pass, over to Sonny, or Sessegnon, but that doesn't seem on. So what he does do is that he goes for sort of kind of something that might be just, what he has left, which is what Chelsea like to do. They try to force you into these sort of moments where you kind of feel like you only have one pass, maybe available to you. He goes for a kind of over the top, kind of ball, risky one into the likes of Emerson. Maybe Emerson not really having always the best first touch, isn't able to get good control of it. Maybe it's not the best pass. Koulibaly is able to snuff it out. That's really just what Chelsea do. They just force you into a dangerous pass, or they force you into a pass that you just don't really feel comfortable with. They're able to snuff it out. Once they snuff it out, they give it to the likes of Thiago Silva, who will feed it into their tempo setter of Jorginho, who wastes no time getting it to Sterling, and then the Chelsea attack just rolls from there into maybe a potential goal. But everybody, that is how Chelsea defend. They do like to win the ball high up the pitch. They do like to, press you high, make you uncomfortable so that they feel like they can get control of the game. And then as well also so that they feel like, you're kind of getting a bit dispirited, a bit disheartened, you could say, with how, the proceedings are going, with how, maybe your team is developing. Because when you're not getting the ball out of your own half, it isn't fun. And it does discourage you, or maybe even, force your team to lose, you could say, a bit of confidence. But that's enough about Chelsea, everybody. Let's talk about Spurs. When it comes to Spurs, I think an important, kind of thing that maybe people have been missing, about Spurs is that the wingers are actually the ones that often hold up the ball, for us. It's not always Harry Kane, that drops deep, holds up the ball and is able to spray people in behind. It's actually the wingers that have been able to, progress play for us and been able to receive the ball in deep positions, kind of get us going. In these sort of situations, a good common one that you might actually notice, we saw it against Rangers, against preseason. We saw it at certain times against Southampton. Romero would pick up the ball, from Dyer in situations like this, and Kulusevski will drop deep, often even very deep if need be, and then with his first touch or two, he will spin his man with often an outside the foot touch, to the flank, or to the outside, maybe inside, whatever it may be. he will mix his man here, and he will be able to find a bit of space going forward. From then on, you can see how many different Spurs players will, be ready, to make a run for him. You have the likes of Emerson on the outside, for a safe option. You have Kane running through the middle. Of course, Sonny's ready to be darting through. You have, Sessegnon on the far side. We saw him even against Southampton play that gorgeous pass, into Sessegnon. So these are, kind of always options, you could say, available to Kulusevski once he spins that man. Then in this scenario, he does go for the safe option, in the case of Emerson. Emerson plays in, a very kind of, safe, back post sort of ball, for the likes of Sessegnon or Sonny. And, in this case, we're going to let our boy Son Heung-min, Sonny, be able to put it in. But I think you guys know what I mean by this, in that, our wingers are very good at holding up the ball and being able to spin their man. From then on, they can find another player or be able to create from themselves. And then we get a nice goal in sort of a counterattack situation. But it's not Kulusevski that does it. It's also Sonny that does this. I've seen Sonny countless times be able to hold up the ball, for Spurs in actually ways that, maybe people don't give him credit for. In this case, Bentancur, after finding a bit of, time on it, plays an outside the touch, kind of pass into Sonny's feet. Sonny, instead of touching it to the outside, like Kulusevski did, touches it into the inside and is actually able to take Azpilicueta for a bit of pace and a bit of strength here. From then, you have Sonny, rolling at full speed through the middle, finds, his partner Harry Kane in behind. Harry Kane plays a shot right at Mendy, deflects into Sonny's path, who's able to tap in, his own kind of, created goal. But, it's not just Kulusevski, like I said, that can sort of, create these moments from, holding up play. It's also Sonny. I think, Harry Kane we often associate as being, that creative, sort of forward for us that drops deep, links up play, etc. I think we don't notice how much our wingers do it. So it's something I want to bring up maybe for this Stats with Jack in particular. But this is how Spurs will defend against Chelsea. Spurs have no shame when it comes to the 5-4-1. The 5-4-1 is a very effective shape. The reason it's so effective is because it allows us to spring into so many different counterattacks. We're able to block up the lanes where it really makes it really tough to break the lines, of the midfield. It makes it really tough to play between the lines, of the back line. It makes it even tough to play to the outside because Emerson and Sessegnon are fully ready, to be able to, pounce on any sort of pass or, to be able to show that, the outside is not really a place where they'll have a ton of freedom. When it comes to the 5-4-1, it really is an effective shape when it comes to, maybe making the whole team play everything in front of you, make them not play any sort of dangerous passes of any kind, because you can even see, the likes of the Chelsea players, they really have nothing on right now. They give it, to Azpilicueta. Azpilicueta plays it out wide to Reece James. Reece James sees nothing on. When you give the ball into Conte here, I mean, really, what does he have, available to him? Because if he plays any of these balls, into these, kind of danger zone here, it could really, end up, leading to a dangerous counterattack. Spurs are ready to pounce on it. He then instead gives it to Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva finds Jorginho, like we said, their tempo setter. Havertz makes that sort of false nine, maybe kind of drop, inverted run into the midfield. But what I really like about Spurs is, sort of 5-4-1 shape is that, the really hard-working midfielders of Højbjerg and Bentancur, they're almost like triggered, to pounce on sort of, passes like this. They really are. It's almost like, I swear, it's like certain triggers, for them. And, Bentancur here wins it, able to poke it away, gives it to Højbjerg. Højbjerg is then able to find the likes of Kane. Kane, unable maybe to find Sonny in time before he's offside. Then settles for that, deep pass into Sessegnon. Sessegnon leading the counterattack. You see how many Spurs players are headed forward. Finds Sonny through the middle for the tap and goal. We're going to play this one more time, everybody. You could see how Spurs, like to, defend. They really have no shame in conceding possession with that 5-4-1 shape, because that 5-4-1 shape is exceptional when it comes to, leading for counterattacks. And also with a harder working Harry Kane, it could be even more effective. Harry Kane could even be winning, some of these, kind of tackles. He could also be forcing maybe these center mids into making even more, sort of dangerous passes through the middle, everybody. But that is, how Spurs defend. And we're going to be looking at Chelsea's danger man going into this one. And Chelsea's danger man, it is going to be Reece James. Reece James, the reason we kind of picked him out here is because essentially he was their most creative player, against Everton. I feel like Reece James has often been kind of, used by Chelsea in games when maybe not a lot is going for him. You could say, the creativity is a bit low. They do like to use the likes of Reece James as that kind of creative outlet. As you can see there, he had the most passes completed. He had some of the most touches on the ball that game. He had the most key passes, which is any pass that leads directly to a shot on goal. Most shot creating actions, which is another way of saying chances created, and kind of be a more loose term. And he also had the second most goal involvements, pretty much any Chelsea player in the entire squad as well. So he pretty much is more of that, I would say creative as well as, attacking outlet than people probably realize, and when people think about, Chelsea danger man, maybe they say Sterling, maybe they say Havertz, maybe they say Mount. You have to realize that it's actually Reece James, in a lot of scenarios, especially when maybe not a lot is going for them. But who's going to be the key man, or should I say key men for Spurs this match? It is going to be the likes of Son Heung-min and Kane. These guys are probably the best duo in the Premier League, if not, the world, I would say. They've already proven that they were a better Premier League duo than the likes of, Lampard and Drogba, a very famous Chelsea duo of some time, but they haven't scored against Chelsea in a really long time. I think, Harry Kane hasn't scored for maybe more than 4, 5, 6 games, against the likes of Chelsea, and, more than that for Sonny as well. So these guys are in need to step up. They obviously didn't score against Southampton. I'm imagining they're quite hungry after not scoring against Southampton. I think Sonny, was a bit unlucky not to score. Same thing, with Kane there, maybe a bit unlucky not to score. They're going to be coming up against maybe a more weakened Chelsea, you could say. They might be licking their lips there, as well as that we have such a big season ahead of us. We have such big high expectations, and we relied on Kulusevski, in that game against Southampton. He really carried us through, put in that man-of-match performance. It's time for the best duo in the world, the best duo in the Premier League, to step up for us and show us that they can carry us through a game like this and get us all 3 points at the bridge, everybody. But let us know what you think of those guys as the key men for this game upcoming against Chelsea. We're going to look at the key battles. The key battles are going to be the likes of Koulibaly, Thiago Silva against Son and Kane. 2 very experienced defenders, 2 very classy defenders against, like I said, the best duo in the world. We'll see how they're able to cope with it. Moving on after that sort of, key battle, we take Reece James and Sessegnon. I think Sessegnon is, a really good wingback for Spurs. He's done really good in these sort of, big battles, with another, kind of compatriot, of England, or he's done well against one-on-one assignments like Salah. Just these big games, these big moments, Sessegnon has done well. He'll be coming up against Reece James as well as Mason Mount. We'll see how he copes with it. I think he will, cope with it very well, because he seems to, love, or maybe, kind of thrive in these sort of occasions, you could say. The other one being Marc Cucurella against Kulusevski. Kulusevski really struggled against Marc Cucurella. We came up against them against Brighton. He could be playing left-sided center back. He could be playing left wing back, maybe playing left wing back alongside Koulibaly. Really tough assignment for Kulusevski, considering how much he did struggle against Cucurella when he was over at Brighton. And then last is going to be Sterling against Emerson. Emerson really did exceptional against Generpo. Maybe not the best assignment to really, prove exactly whether he is, fully, kind of improved. So if he has a good game defensively against Sterling, and then is also maybe has a good game going forward, kind of creating and whatnot, being able to be that attacking outlet that we need him to be, as well as that attacking support. So like I said, solid defensively against Sterling, being able to be that attacking support. I think that would mean that, Emerson has won his battle, but that is going to be a big key battle if he does come up against Sterling, everybody. But that is all for the Stats with Jack. Do let me know, everybody, what you thought of this one. If there's anything I did miss out, there's anything that you feel like maybe I should have touched on a bit more, feel free, everybody, to smash that like button on your way out. As well, feel free to hit us with the super thanks if you feel like supporting the channel and all the various content that we put out there for you. Give me those score predictions in those comments below, everybody. But as always, come on, you Spurs. In Conte we trust, and I will be seeing ya.